be different. Instead of being self-taught, you need to put like an assistant or something on the link. Because
Okay.
what it does is
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Youth Education Community Services. Today's Monday, October 23rd, 2017. It's a 5:30 meeting. And with me is Council Member Solorio. And I'm told that Council Member Benavides will be here shortly. And if we can go ahead with, we're going to start with public comments. I don't have any cards. No cards? Okay, I'm seeing no cards. We're going to move on past the public comments, and we're going to go to item number 1. Going to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
move the minutes.
Okay, well, second, we're going to go ahead and approve the minutes. And we're going to go to item number 2.
Yes.
The amendments for the bylaws.
Yes. In order to make sure that the entire council is aware of the scope of the focus for this council committee, you'll see that we were working with the city manager's office and we made a change. It's a draft of the bylaws, and what you'll see that was changed is we added part of your scope of purpose for this committee is city-produced special events. That way, the entire city council knows that when staff are producing city-produced events, these are not permitted private events. These are city-produced events like the 5K that we just had on Saturday, or fiestas, for example. This is where council first gets updated through this council committee, and that's what that is all about. So I was working with Cynthia to do this. That's why we added this for your consideration.
Okay, and I also saw something in here where we update. Speaking of that, we update the rest of the council. But is that through the chair, or is that through a memo? Or I'm still looking for that.
I want to say that it's been that I guess it's a receive and file in the council committee,
okay.
and then of course you can pull it and add your own perspective.
Okay, very good. Okay, I have no. I looked over the draft and it looks good to me. Motion looks. It's going to move the. Okay, so Solorio moves it. I'll second, and we'll approve.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 3, Santa Ana Zoo projects.
Very
Staff?
good. Let me introduce this item, and then I also have a part of it that I'll be presenting. This is the Santa Ana Zoo project status, and as you know, I think Kent, the zoo opened in 1955, and it's over 60 years. 52. So we're talking about 65 years ago. So it's a 65-year-old zoo. It's a fantastic zoo. There is, in fact, the fires recently that occurred, all of the animals from the Orange County Regional Zoo were all fitted into our hospital and our quarantine areas because we were helping them out because the fire got very close to the regional zoo. And so we're significantly larger with regards to the specimens. And in 1990, we had council approve a master plan for the zoo. It's way overdue. You approved last year $200,000 in order to do an RFP and hire a consultant to help us create a new master plan for the zoo as well as a strategic plan. It's a very important document. It assesses the current status of our facilities, and through an elaborate process that you're going to hear today, we have the consultants. We have a really good momentum going, and it will come to council for final approval. I'm thinking February. January, February, something like that. And but we wanted this committee to kind of first get a sense of where we're at. And there's a lot of opportunities with the zoo master plan, and then following that presentation, there will be a presentation on the giant river otter, which is also a project that you all approved and funded. 1.4 million, and the Friends of the Santa Ana Zoo, who are here, as well as our consultants, they have done a great job in helping us fundraise. There'll be a little bit more of that during that component of the presentation. And then the last part is talking about the AZA accreditation. As you know, we lost the accreditation, and I'll be talking about the steps we're going to be taking in order to get the accreditation back. So it's a three-part presentation. This first presentation is I'll call in our zoo manager, our great zoo manager, Ken Yamaguchi, who is retiring. You may or may not have seen the memo in a week and a half from now. Yes. So Kent is retiring, and he'll be presenting, he'll start it off on the Zoo Master Plan, and then presenting our guests, consultant and FOSAS, as well as making the presentation. That's going to be followed up by a presentation on giant river otter by our animal registrar, Ethan Fisher. Ethan, there's Ethan. He was recently appointed as the acting zoo manager, because effective November 1st is Kent's last day, while we do the recruitment for the full-time zoo manager that is currently open. So yeah, Kent is retiring way too young, but he wants to be a full-time grandparent, and he'll tell you more about that. But
I've gotten some gray hairs.
Yeah.
Recently.
So let me pass it on to Kent, and then I'll come in at the third component about the AZ.
Great. And for the record, the interim city manager, Cynthia Curtis, has just joined us. Okay.
So, thank you so much. I'll come on up here so we can be next to the stage here, and I just want to... Oh. Do you want to announce...
Go ahead. Oh, and Councilmember Benavides has now joined the meeting, for the record.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for letting us come here and let you know what's going on at the zoo. It's very exciting. Thank you for letting me be part of the zoo for the past 30 years. It's been great, and I'm going to miss it a lot, but I do have a lot of grandkids, some who live just down the street, and going to be bringing them back to the zoo often, so you can't get rid of me that easily. The first section is going to be talking about the strategic and physical master plan for the zoo. And just a little background, we did in 1989, we did do a whole study and put together a master plan that was adopted in 1990. I think the only two people left, Ron and I, were on that committee putting that together. But a couple of important things came out of that plan. And the master plan is the plan that sets the course for the zoo as to where we're going to go, what types of animals we're going to have, how we grow, the way our business goes. And so that was done in 90. A couple of things that were said in there that we followed to this day. It set the theme of the zoo as a Central and South American zoo. Instead of looking over the entire world, really focus on this one section of the earth that not a lot of zoos focused on. And so we found that to be a very good way to focus the collection that we had. And we've been following that to that day. And given our community, it makes a lot of sense to follow that. The other idea was that we are a place where families get together, where learning takes place, where we're teaching the children and have these wonderful opportunities for things to happen at the zoo. And that has continued on as we've gone. But over 30 years, we're sort of outdated. And we knew that we needed a new one. So we went out to a RFP, and we got a wonderful group to do this. And most of the presentation is actually going to be with Greg Lester. I always miss... You got it right. Lester, I finally got it right. There's all these extra... I's and E's and C's in there, but it's Lester, and with CLR Design and a wonderful design group. We actually chose them to be the designer for our River Otter exhibit and started that project first. But we were having such a great time with them, and they were such a quality group that we decided that we would have them look at the whole zoo. And so Greg's going to be explaining the process of what's going on. But it really has, as we've been getting together and looking at this, it's been exciting to see where we are and where we're going to be going. And it's really been helpful because the zoo has a wonderful support organization, the Friends of Santa Ana Zoo, and they've been providing us with lots of money and lots of resources and just help manage the zoo. And one of the things, too, we have two representatives that I wanted to let you know about. We have the board secretary, Armando Armenta, and then we have the vice president-elect, Michelle Levison. And they're from the Friends board, but the Friends is an important part of this also because not only are we looking at the physical side, but also the business side. So I'll let you take it from there. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Can I ask, how do I advance the slides? Is there a
You just say next slide.
just say next? Okay. All right. Easy enough. Easy enough. What? Yeah. Just give you the cue. I guess I just want to first say thank you for having CLR out tonight. It's a pleasure to present the progress on the plan. And I also just want to say thanks to Kent. It's been an honor to work with such a legend, at the zoo. I mean, Kent knows every time we walk the site with him, it's pretty amazing. He knows where every plant came from, where every animal has come from, and it's been a real pleasure. I wish we could have overlapped longer, but we're grateful for the few months that we've had. And obviously, Kent and the team, the Friends, the city, you guys have all been instrumental into where we are now. We're about halfway through the process, which we'll explain to you and illustrate for you. But anyway, thank you. It's been an honor. So the overall process. Sorry. We will just give you we have about 20 minutes or so. We'll give you a brief update on where we stand on the master plan and where things are heading through the end of the year and then early into January, February. And then I think we'll talk about Otter a bit. So next. So a little bit about us at CLR Design. Again, my name is Greg Lester. I'm a principal with CLR Design. Our home base is out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've been doing this since the early 80s. We have historically always been in Philadelphia. About 3 years ago, I opened up an office for us here in Southern California. So we have about 25 employees in Philadelphia, a group of 5 here in Capistrano Beach. And so what we're very proud of is our what we call legacy of innovation. We are probably the only firm in the U.S. that focuses exclusively on working with zoological clients. So we work with zoos, we work with animal conservation centers, sanctuaries, aquariums occasionally, but absolutely 100% of our focus is working with zoos. And so when you look at our body of work, most of our work is based in the U.S. We have probably 10 to 15% of our work internationally. We select those projects. We are currently working with Wildlife Reserve Singapore. We have some projects in China, in the Middle East, but most of our work is stateside. Of all of our projects, I'm going to say about 20% of that work is master planning. And then quite often what happens is we build a relationship with a client. We're at the table, and then we have an opportunity to help see that vision of the master plan through. And as funding becomes available and as resources become available, help execute capital projects. So a very similar process as you're doing here. What we commend you on is running, in terms of master planning, is running both the strategic and facility planning together. It is very key that those things go hand in hand and they help influence each other as we go through the process. So the strategic plan is essentially a business plan. We have a consultant, they're zoo advisors, so they also focus on working with zoos throughout the U.S., creating long-range business plans. So just like we do on the facility side, they will help provide a zoo with a 10, 15, 20-year roadmap for how to implement projects, for how to operate your zoo, They'll provide recommendations for how to raise money. And they're doing a little bit of all of that, along with some analysis, just like we are, in terms of market and location and context, and how we can create the right roadmap, both strategic on the financial side and operating side, as well as the facility side going forward. And so that's the process we're going through. Next. Again, quickly in terms of innovation, what's interesting is you go all the way back to the late 1800s, and we have zoos in the U.S. that were built then, Cincinnati, Philadelphia. And then you had some zoos that were built between the 20s and 50s during the Works Progress era, Toledo, other zoos in Ohio, in the Midwest, and even out in California. San Francisco, I believe, was built in the early 50s. But not a lot happened between the late 1800s and 1975. We call them menageries or grottos. So it really started as a concept in Germany and carried over here to the U.S. When we say menagerie, it's essentially a checklist of animals. Otter, check, we saw that. Saki monkey, check. Where things are started to head in the 70s and where they're absolutely heading now are mixed species environments, creating cohesive environmental experiences. So it's more than just one animal. It's providing that animal with choice. It goes beyond the advent of immersion, habitat immersion, which is essentially making habitats look and feel more naturalistic. It's a term we call activity-based design. It's CLR's term that we created back in the early and mid-90s, and that's called activity-based design. That's essentially allowing animals to make choice. It's about creating a series of habitats that can timeshare, if that makes sense, and allowing animals to decide, do I want to go here today? Do I want to go here? What's the weather condition? What do I want to do today? So we provide those choices for the animals, and that's honestly where things are heading today in terms of animal welfare. Next. So again, the master plan, it is not just a one-page concept or design. This is really about a roadmap that's got a lot of depth and backing. As Gerardo said, there's analysis that allows us and the zoo team and all the stakeholders to make informed decisions on how this plan should evolve. And that's what a master plan really is about. The next, that's just actually a quote from the RFP that was in. So this was your vision statement for the master plan. So next. So where we are. So we have really, it's a three-part process. The fourth, what we call stakeholder involvement, really is continuous through the whole duration, which for this master plan is probably going to be about 8 to 9 months roughly. We'll show you some images of some of the analysis that we've done and where we're at. The first task is, again, what we call inventory and analysis. We're collecting data. We're looking at base maps. For us, really, it comes down to three simple things of land use, landform, and circulation or flow. So how do people move through the zoo? How do your staff operate the zoo and move through the campus? How are the trees? What are the conditions of the trees? What are the slopes and grades doing? How are the utilities? These are all key things that we look at that help inform decisions on new ideas. That process took about 2 months to 3 months. We then moved into concept testing. So now we've got all this data backing this new idea and concepts. And we've had 3 workshops to date. And our workshops, the way we run them is we come in for 2 to 2.5 days. We meet at the zoo. We have probably a total of 5, 6, 7, 8 meetings, focus meetings, and work with every department. So we'll talk to facilities, we talk to operations, animal care, husbandry, guest services, horticulture, basically every aspect of a zoo. And we
also brought in the parks.
And parks as well.
Community.
Yep.
So we've had the parks involved in it also.
Not to mention friends. And so we're basically extracting information from your team. And from that, we will then, again, make informed decisions on new concepts. So what are the wish list items? What are the things you've been thinking about for 15, 20 years that you just haven't been able to do in terms of animals, in terms of infrastructure, whatever it may be? And so that's where we're at in the process. The final phase is what we call master plan development. This is where the strategic plan and the facilities plan really come together. We will have a booklet that'll probably be 50 to 75 pages. It'll have recommendations for how projects can be implemented over time, probably over a 15 to 20-year window. And at the end of this presentation, I'll talk a little bit about what we call the balanced implementation approach that's working with the strategic plan. And it's about carefully choosing your projects as you go year to year. We all want to spend money and build great animal exhibits, but it's really more than that. We have to take care of all of our clients. We have to take care of the guests. We have to take care of your staff. And we have to do all the stuff that none of us want to spend money on, is all that stuff underground, all the utilities. And if you don't take care of that stuff on a year-to-year basis, then that's when deferred maintenance becomes an issue, and it's hard to catch up. So we'll talk about that balanced approach. So next. So this is your existing campus. This is our existing land use map. We look very carefully at the edges. We're really trying to understand all of the planned activities along the edges, proposed developments, how do guests get to the zoo, where do they park? When they park, how do they get into the zoo? Is there enough space for all that to happen? Next.
Just to let you know on that, it actually is each tree they have marked out exactly where all the existing trees are. So that's the detail that they've got into.
So every time we visit, we spend probably an extra hour or two and with a map, and with the base data that we have, we keep adding to it, making sure we've got a current set of documents. Again, flow and trees for your campus in particular is huge. I mean, you've got beautiful park trees throughout the entire 16 to 18 acre campus. Some of them are aging, and so we absolutely think part of the master plan has to address some level of reforestation. We've got beautiful plants. We think this is a botanical garden, and we think that has to certainly influence projects that are built, and make sure that with every project we build, the botanical side of things is being considered. Flow, to be very honest, we think that's one of the biggest issues on the campus. We've got a strip of parking that runs along the south end. Currently is okay for most days, but on busier days, and if your attendance were to grow, we see some fundamental flaws with how you enter the zoo, where you park, and then how do you walk through the entry. We start looking at spaces like this for overflow parking and say, does it make sense to have our main parking there, and can we create the appropriate geometry and flow from that space safely into the zoo? And so we'll share some ideas of what we're testing on that. And then once you get into the zoo, is there a main path? Are there what we call hubs throughout the campus where guests can get under shade, they can feel cool, they can be comfortable, they can sit, they can see animal exhibits, they can buy a drink, they can buy lunch. Again, we're seeing room for improvement throughout the campus to make that much, much better. So flow, trees are huge parts of your campus, and we're looking at every one of these items you see here in terms of existing buildings, exhibits, operating facilities, etc. So next. And then when we get into concepts, again, it's starting to see some patterns based on all this analysis. How can the zoo be reformed over the years? It's not going to all happen at once, but over, again, that 15, 20 years, how can we develop projects with a much bigger vision 20 years out? So this is a concept that we're exploring. We are diving into more detail now. But the idea in terms of animal distribution and experience distribution, are there three major zones, riverine, grasslands, and forest, that could really create that structure of South America that Kent mentioned? The entry is huge. It's where we make money. It's where we make friends. But it's got to be easy. It's got to be safe. It's got to be comfortable. Events are a huge asset, and the lawn that's there is a huge asset within your campus. So how can we make that better? That's something we're looking very carefully at. The two other zones, the farm, again, it's a recent investment. There's been ongoing work, smaller projects here at the farm. We think it's an asset within your campus. We think there's certainly room for improvement. And so that's an idea we're exploring. Then finally, on maintenance and operations, we've got some permanent facilities that are working quite well in terms of animal care. We need more animal space. We need more what we call off-exhibit yards, so outdoor space for animals that have special needs. And then on the maintenance side, equipment storage, material storage, flexible office space for staff, break rooms. These are all things that we think can certainly layer into the plan as well. Next. And then the next level of detail, I know it's probably hard to see all that from where you're sitting, but we are exploring details of both exhibits and zones that can remain. So if they're working well and they were built recently, they should probably remain long term based on that analysis. We are also looking at zones that are underutilized or aging. So the north part of your campus, which is where a lot of the old and aging monkey exhibits are, needs some help. But it's a beautiful part of your campus with big mature trees. So is that a zone that we can focus on and redevelop in another way? Can monkeys be redistributed throughout the entire campus, again, to create those sort of mixed species environments rather than just a taxonomic organization? So that's something we're testing with the group as well. We've explored many options for the entry at this early stage. Maybe we go to the next slide, sorry. And are now leaning towards an option that, again, looks at a much enhanced scenario for parking and flow. So a dedicated entry for parking that then takes you into a main lot that can accommodate over 450 cars. So a little bit more than what is there today with both this lot and the main expansion lot. Very easy geometry into a new entry sequence that has an appropriately scaled gift shop, ticketing facility. Ticketing is likely heading towards where most zoos are heading is more of electronic or app-based process. But we need restrooms, we need guest services, we need security. All the things that a zoo entry needs to have can be built within this new facility. We've got conditions at the existing entry that are aging. The gift shop is undersized. We don't have storage. The ticketing building needs to be addressed in the next 2 years for some structural issues. So this is just one example of a project that's informed on the existing conditions that are here today. Once you get into the entry, we have essentially a loop, a spine, and a loop. And at each one of those intersections here and here, we have what we call hubs. And so from those hubs, you can buy a drink, you can sit under the shade, you can sit on a bench, beautiful panorama of exhibits. We think these are flexible enough that they can be used for evening events. So a much more simplified circulation pattern with tertiary, more immersive exhibit trails throughout the zoo. It's one of the comments we heard throughout our process is everyone loves the intimacy of this zoo. And so by no means are we proposing big, Disney Main Street promenades, but we need to have some level of hierarchy, so main paths and hubs, but then allowing guests to feel, that intimate campus feel that Santa Ana Zoo has. So that's absolutely part of this plan. So next. The zones are starting to take shape in terms of balancing the investments and the zones. We've got kind of the money-making and operating facilities at the top. So entry, event, the central hub, which we think is the main lunch spot, and potential for events, both daytime and evening. The play component, so really working to create a great space for your members and everyday guests. Habitat zones, again, riverine, grasslands, forest as sort of the main sort of structure to help distribute your collection plan. And then animal health, operations, and maintenance. And so these are kind of the 4 zones that or types of projects that we're looking at to create a balanced roadmap for your campus. So next. Proposed circulation, we talked about that. We talked about the importance of hubs and hierarchy throughout the campus. Let me go to the next one here. So that's essentially where we're at in the process. We're in the very early concept testing phase, but based on the feedback that we've gotten from staff and from the friends and other stakeholders, things are starting to gel. And if you go to the next slide, where we're heading is what we call master plan development. Again, the booklet starts to come together. There are discernible projects with budgets and schedules and all of that. And I think there might be one more slide or not. So come January, February is where this will really start to come together as a booklet. And then maybe quickly on our strategic partners to the next slide, Zoo Advisors. They are essentially running parallel to our process. They're probably lagging just a bit because a lot of their work is informed based on some of the stuff we're working on. So they're in sort of the market analysis, so looking very carefully at what is San Diego doing, what's LA doing, what's the right fit for us here in Santa Ana, and then having more focused interviews with your team, kind of talking about operating and then just getting into project implementation. So I think that's it. Oh, how are we doing on time? I got one more, sorry. And then on the implementation, again, I'll move through this quickly, and you can flip all the way through till it gets to the end there. And this is just simply saying, again, we all would love to spend 100% of our funds on animal attractions, but what we've seen, and we've shared a number of case studies with Kent and his team throughout the U.S., but again, it's this balanced implementation approach, looking at infrastructure, looking at strategic services, looking at attractions. These numbers will be tweaked specifically for the right fit for the Santa Ana Zoo, but we could share examples in Salt Lake City, Denver, Oregon, many other examples where they have followed this approach. Their attendance has continued to increase. They're making more money, and this is over a 15, 20-year period. So again, lots of success with this model, and this will be adjusted specifically for your zoo. Okay.
Thank you, Greg. Just a couple of last comments about the master plan. We were very, very excited to have them, and one of the things that you've heard from Greg is that they understand us. The intimacy of the zoo. You got to experience the zoo very intimately, getting to know some of the animals. But that's what people like, the family-friendly aspect of it, the quietness, the ability to get away, the ability to see the animals in a natural environment. That's what our guests like. That's what we know we need to provide to them. And CLR has really gotten that. And beyond that, our last master plan in '89 gave us a great idea of what to do with the zoo, but it didn't really look at what the business side was, so there was no way to ever get there. And we got through the first phase of a 10-phase plan and never got any further. So really looking at the business side is important to us. And next, what we're going to be talking about is one of the first phases as we're moving into this, the giant river otter and the howler monkey exhibit, the work that we're doing, and I'll introduce our registrar, soon to be acting zoo manager, Ethan Fisher. And I just have to say, as a last comment, he was the smartest. Hiring him was the smartest decision I ever made. He's a good one to make you look really good. He knows how to run the zoo and has just been doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much, Ethan. But this is Ethan Fisher, and he'll take us to the next section.
Well, thank you for having me. It's exciting coming here and talking about the projects that we're excited about at the zoo and want to share with the community and the residents of Santa Ana and Orange County. Well, the project I'm going to talk about and give some background on is the Giant River Otter project. I'll give some history about how we came to that project, the needs that we had, and how it implements into the zoo-wide master plan that we're developing. Greg will give some specifics about the actual details of the design that we have. Right now we're in the design development phase, so we're just about ready to start continuing to flesh out everything, do our construction documents, and then keep moving into an actual construction phase off in the future. So with the giant river otter, they are a South American species. They're an endangered species. They are the largest land freshwater otter. So they're about the size of a sea otter, but they live in these freshwater rivers. And we thought with this exhibit that they're going to go into, we wanted they're a very dynamic species. They're very active. They're very noisy. They have a conservation need that from the zoological standpoint. So there's a breeding program that they're part of, and there's connections with water in our local community. There's fresh water, and that's one of the reasons we came upon this species. They're also a companion to primates. So they live in the same habitats that a lot of the primates that we have at the zoo are found in. You would find the primates very arboreal up in the trees, and then you would have the otters living in the water and on the river's edge. So We can go on to the next slide. The project site is one of the most beautiful sites in the zoo, actually. And this exhibit, the Amazon's Edge exhibit, was the first project that came about after the original zoo master plan in 1989. So the Amazon's Edge project was originally, it was dubbed Monkey Island, and it came about in 1993. But it's an aged exhibit now. There's some structural issues with the building and the water filtration system, but it's definitely one space within the zoo that everybody loves, and they just cherish it. It has the beautiful waterfall. You hear it as you're coming up the path into the zoo. The noise, you walk by, and there's a cool atmosphere. There's beautiful trees that embrace you as you walk through. So we want to maintain that space and that feel and that atmosphere going forward. So that was why we settled upon this exhibit. We also thought it could be a more dynamic space. There's currently howler monkeys living in there. At one time, there was a large aquatic rodent, a capybara, but that's why we settled upon the giant river otter. So we can go to the next slide. There's some pictures showing the existing facilities. The wood observation deck has had rot and termite damage. We've had to remove parts of it. So currently it's inaccessible for the public. There's issues with the water filtration system. So that's some on the project site. And we can go to the next one. And we had workshops with CLR and went through and really fleshed out what we were hoping to get out of this project, what the deliverables would be, and why those things were important. So animal care was a very important thing, and ties into the AZA accreditation. That's definitely a top priority. Also having an opportunity for water education, which is why this otter species is so relevant, and maybe giving people a little bit more of a sneak peek into what goes on behind the scenes in a zoo. And that, as we go forward with our zoological park, that's going to become increasingly important. We need to sort of pull back the curtain and show people how we do what we do at the zoo and the animal welfare that goes into that, because that's what people want to see. That's the critical importance. So there's the possibility of doing that with this exhibit. We'd be able to have training opportunities with the keeper staff and really teach people about this species. But a key thing is the need for primate habitats. And currently this exhibit does have primate habitats in it. It has the howler monkeys. It has the howler monkeys living in the palm trees, and then also in the building. So we looked at some ways that we could layer in a monkey habitat that would meet the needs that are coming from the Zoo Association and really meet the needs of the animals. So when Greg comes up here to talk about it, he'll talk about a novel solution that we've developed. It's in place at a couple zoos right now, but it's definitely cutting edge with a trail system so the animals can move through the exhibit space and also move through some other surrounding areas, giving the visitors an opportunity to see the animals acting in a more natural way where they can move to different areas of the zoo and the exhibit. And then it would really help the animals behave in a natural sense and feel very comfortable at the zoo. So we can go to the next slide. And I'm going to introduce Greg again. And he's going to go through and talk about the actual details of the schematic concept that we have right now.
All right. Thank you, Ethan. Well, I'll say, one of our jobs is really to make sure that every project that you build, every capital project you build, that you can build the next one. And so we're involved with the master plan. We know how all the puzzle pieces work together. So it's one of the advantages we have on this project is we know where this is likely going to head in the future, whether it's 5 years from now, 20 years from now. And so we want to make sure that with every move, with every exhibit, with every new building, it's not prohibiting you from doing the next move. And so that's part of our job. Most of you have been, hopefully everyone's been to the zoo and seen the current Amazon's Edge site. It's a very, as Ethan and Ken said, it's a beautiful site. The waterfall is tremendous. It really blocks the noise from the five. And so it kind of makes our job easy because it's already got these beautiful mature trees, and it's about layering in otter in a creative way. And then can we do what Ethan says, one of the things that makes your campus unique is monkeys and the focus on South America and the beautiful landscape, mature trees. And why can't we think about that with every project we build? So the idea of layering in howler monkeys and other primates in the future really ties into that vision and goal of the master plan. One of the issues with moated exhibits, they're beautiful, but the containment are the edge conditions and quite often the water. What that doesn't allow you to do as easily is to allow for and showcase natural patterns of movement for certain animals. So for an arboreal species, like howler monkeys, for example, you can only go so far within a moated exhibit without making that moated exhibit even bigger and bigger and bigger. So the trail system that Ethan mentioned allows for those patterns of movement and choice that we talked about in the master plan presentation. And so, in short, what we have here is a repurposing of the existing building where howlers are housed today. That will be repurposed for both otters and monkeys. There is a full loop trail system, arboreal trail system, that runs up at the canopy level. So anywhere from probably 12 up to 16, 18 feet above the ground and above the visitors. You've all seen where the waterfall is and that big mud bank wall in the back and the vegetation. It will run right along the top of that wall and then ultimately end in this, what we call kind of a destination habitat, which we want to be absolutely spectacular. We want to have all the things that monkeys want to have, a feeder tree, spaces where keepers can walk up to and interact with the edges to give little talks and presentations to your guests. But it's got to be a really dynamic, really exciting habitat space, high volume habitat for howlers, and make it really rich and dynamic. And the same is over here. We think we can create, there's another pocket of space here just below a fig tree that we think we can create another sort of destination habitat that's got all the things that monkeys love to do.
Thank you very much. We need to kind of move it along just a little bit, gentlemen.
Yep.
So
Sure.
Thank you.
Next slide. Some imagery of what that could potentially look like, the trail system above to the destination habitat. Go to the next slide. Again, this is showing how this can layer into the master plan in the future. So with other riverine-focused exhibits throughout this zone, ultimately monkeys can sequence into another loop that we're just beginning to test. Lots of other animals that can layer into this zone. There's the capybara. We've got all kinds of lowland riverine architecture built within exhibitry. It's all part of a much bigger vision. Next. And so in terms of process, we are in the early phases of concept design or schematic design, if you've been involved with other capital projects. And we are just kind of wrapping up that phase, moving into detailed design where many of our engineers are going to get more involved and the plans get black and white and more detailed and all that. So still early in the process. To put a number to it, we're probably in the 20% complete range of design.
So the next item on our agenda is an update on the AZA accreditation, which Gerardo is going to speak to.
So let me close this last section. It'll be very brief. So the fact that we happen to gotten approval from council and funding to do the master plan and the business strategic plan, and then we already have approval for the giant river otter, and now we're trying to add this howler monkey exhibit. That will help. Both of those things will help us so much in getting the AZA accreditation back. The AZA accreditation, we've had it for many, many years, and we lost it, as you know. And there's probably around 2,500 zoos in the United States that exist, and only about, 230 of those 2,500 zoos are AZA accredited, and ours has been one of them. We recently lost it, but there's so many different, I won't read all of them, but there's so many different benefits for being an AZA accredited zoo. In particular, the breeding of animals, conservation of animals, being able to exchange and sending babies and then bringing back babies, and just a lot of knowledge in the AZA Association that we really have to have a solid plan on getting it back. The Zoo Master Plan, which will come again to the full council around February for approval, The giant river otter, which is currently in the design phase, will help us tremendously because some of the things, next slide, that we were asked to focus on to get the accreditation back is making sure that we have more cutting edge, modern primate exhibits, which is exactly what we were talking about regards to howlers. We have a lot of monkey species, and so we're going to need to continue doing that. The other thing that we're doing, once every week, there's an animal care unit team, which I'm part of, that focuses on improving a performance improvement plan for animal care, which is something also that AZA asked us to improve. How we focus on, as a team, working on helping and improve the animals' welfare, and a variety of different other things, and then just the implementation of the plan, and more importantly, convincing AZA that this municipal-run zoo is highly supported by the city. We have adequate funding for it. That's another very important phase of getting the accreditation back. We believe that in 2 years we're going to reapply and succeed in getting it. We want to give us 2 years because we want to show momentum that we're working on the recommendations they had at this last inspection. We're happy to take any questions. That's really the completion of the zoo agenda. If there's any questions, let us know.
Councilmember Solorio, Benavides, any questions?
Do have a couple questions. Thank you for the quite thorough update from the master plan to the otter exhibit and the accreditation. Santa Ana Zoo is certainly one of just a great asset for our community, a source of pride and also a gathering place. My daughter's 15 years old, and I remember taking her there when she was months old. We've had my son's birthday parties there, and my daughter and her friends, and so a lot of different, again, just a great asset for both our community, our families here locally, but it's also a gathering destination place. I know as being members of the zoo years past, there was people from all over Orange County and outside of Orange County as well that would come and benefit and join us here in Santa Ana for that. So I'm glad that there's just this attention, this high-level focus, long-term question with regard to the master plan. I recall that at one point. I don't know if there's a way to bring the design back. It's great to see that there is a attention looking at what to do with the overflow parking, the need for parking and such. I think it's a couple.
It's actually forward.
So we'll yeah. So my and I can keep talking. Yeah, right. So this would looks like address the parking needs and the immediate. I remember at one point we were talking about the fact that we're right off of the 5 freeway exit and entrance, First Street and main thoroughfare through the city. There's been discussion. There was discussion at one point about whether we should reverse and have right now we back our entrance. The back of the zoo basically backs that main thoroughfare, and we may not necessarily be maximizing the exposure and the draw it can be. There's the Elks. We discussed that at one point again in concept idea of vacating Elk Lane and expanding the zoo, and maybe even connecting it to that larger development that Wormers now has. And so can you has that come into discussion here? And
so the zoo master plan, the original one, I'll try to be very brief, had suggested perhaps considering the front entrance of the zoo, the new entrance of the zoo on First Street. And the problem throughout the years that I've experienced has been, as the head of the agency, is that we were never able to do it for two reasons, but primarily because it's too narrow. There's not enough land, to have a really like this type of entrance in there, and so. And then we would have to, relocate a lot of the primate exhibits. So that was part of the reason why, since 1990, not much was done, because there was a realization there's really not enough land, and even if we had a land, we would have to really remove the primate exhibits, right? But so that wasn't never really focused on. And then when the Elks, this is some years ago, we contemplated, could we do a joint use lodge, and there was some interest to a certain degree, but it never really went anywhere. And the idea maybe we can close the road and then have these shared facilities, parking, etc. There was some interest, but the Elks went in a different direction. They sold the land to Wormers, and both zoo staff and myself included, we've been coordinating with the planning and building. In fact, planning and building has one of their planners goes to the zoo master plan meetings, and Wormers both the Wormers development and the zoo staff and the master plan effort so far does not recommend closing Elks Lane because it's a very important flow. It can make it into a very beautiful green entrance that will serve both the new development as well as the zoo, and then having this entrance, but improved entrance over here. So if we had a lot of land and we weren't stuck here with a 5 freeway, we probably would consider that because of the front. But this is what certainly sort of makes sense. We've been in keeping Elks Lane open and just making it very beautiful. It's a beautiful entrance with trees. I don't know if there was any other thoughts that anyone wants to share, but that's what I'm recalling with those two issues, the front entrance and Elks Lane.
And there was the idea, if you look at the old plan, while the entrance was going towards the front, the old plan called for from here up to be parking lot. And the entrance was actually towards the middle. You still enter it that way, but First Street has changed so much in 30 years. The amount of traffic has changed there, and having that entrance there is not as conducive now, traffic-wise.
But we also believe that the experience of driving through this beautiful canopy of trees to the entrance is going to be sort of the part of the experience. You immediately, once you get out of the freeway and you start going into, it's like going into the Santa Ana Zoo, and hopefully it'll be part of its personality, the Elks Lane.
And we have been working with Wormers as the look and the whole entrance idea. They're working with us on that.
Okay, well, that addresses the question. I know we discussed it at some time back. Appreciate it, Gerardo. Thank you for it.
Okay, any other questions? No questions. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Appreciate the update. I'm going to move on to item number 4, the discussion of Fiestas Patrias.
Yes. Before Councilmember Benavides joined us and Interim City Manager Cynthia joined us, the committee approved the change on the bylaws so that this committee now formally, part of your scope is to also review city-produced events.
Well, actually, no, it hasn't been approved yet. The council asked that there be a committee set up to be involved with committee events. We're recommending it be you rather than a new committee. We would take that to the council, but this is how we would propose to change your bylaws if the committee is interested in accepting that role. Given your schedules and when we have tried to set up additional meetings.
Yes, and they actually, before you got here, they actually moved the amendment. They approved the amendment. So it now has to go to council, as Cynthia mentions, for the entire council to approve those bylaws. Yeah.
Great.
Sorry.
So we had done that right before we started the zoo project, and because of that, we're now going to give you an update on a continuation of the last time we spoke about Fiestas Patrias at the July Council Committee meeting. At the time, we mentioned that, and Jeannie's going to do the presentation, but for me to introduce, just to frame the issue, if you recall, we were asked by City Manager Cavazos, because the private event producer wasn't able to continue producing the private event at the end of 2013, to rise to the occasion and have City Park and Rec staff produce the 2014 Cinco de Mayo in Fiestas. And we did. And we did that for 2014, for 2015, 2016, and we just finished the 2017. But it was never meant to be forever. It was until we find an opportunity for getting a private event producer. So at the last council committee, I mentioned that we're not able to continue producing the Cinco de Mayo event. It's not a matter of money. It's just not enough staff. We're pulling staff from the rec centers and the senior centers. So we shared with you that we were going to be doing an RFP for 2018, and that's what this presentation is all about. and I'll pass it over to Jeannie.
Good
Great,
evening,
thank you.
everybody. On this slide, you'll see two flyers, one for one event, which was Calle Cuatro de Santana for Fiestas in 2010, and the one that we just had in September. Little history, as Gerardo mentioned. The event has taken place for 39 years. Next year, it will be the 40th year of this event. Traditionally, it has been produced by a private event producer. Since 2011, Parks and Recreation has administered the contract for event production. And in 2010, by the city manager's office, and before that, by a private event producer. As Gerardo mentioned, Parks and Recreation oversaw the contract in 2011, 2012, and 2013. The event producer at the time, MX Live, after 2013, they couldn't continue with it. As a result, as Gerardo had mentioned, City Manager Cavazos asked Parks and Recreation to produce it in 2014, but was not meant for it to be forever. In 2016, we did an RFP. We learned that no one applied, and we learned that the costs had gone up quite significantly, that we needed to provide a subsidy.
I'm sorry, did you say we did not have any applicants?
No one applied. No one. And we actually had a conference before that, before it was due, and no one applied. So thus, we produced it once again, and has, well, like Geraldo mentioned, has been a drain on staff. As you all aware, our current rec leaders, supervisors, part-time staff put it on. And we do it happily. However, at the end of the year, of the fiscal year, we do run out of hours for our part-time staff, and our full-time staff are not available because of the must-use comp time.
And just as a quick comment, I completely understand just the drain on staff and all. You all have done a great job, though, by the way. I mean, it has been done very well and good quality, great experience for our community, but I could definitely understand
Thank
how
you.
it's definitely draining.
And so staff is very excited for the RFP that's going to come out soon, over in 2018. Staff did a great job this past Fiestas on 2017, and crowds were huge, bigger than ever. And PD was concerned for the big crowds and the safety concern. Now I'm going to turn it over to Community Service Supervisor Juan Lara to talk a little bit about the parade.
Okay, so as you are also aware, another great component of our Fiestas Patrias festival every year is our annual Fiestas Patrias parade. It typically takes place on Sunday afternoon starting at 4 p.m. And this parade is been a responsibility of the agency to coordinate its implementation since 2011 when we first started working these special events. But as you may also be aware by now, it has been somewhat challenging to manage the relationship dynamics between the different people that work and participate in this parade. So that is due in part because we have conflicting factions that are very passionate about the states that they come from and they want to represent on the parade. And because of that passion, they end up having a tug of war as to who's going to lead the representation of the state on the parade. Through the working relationship that we've established with them, we have been able to manage those conflicting interests and that passion that they do have for participating in the parade. And under certain aspects and with specific states, we've actually managed to get them to collaborate and work together on the representation of a state on the parade. Now, what we do recommend as an agency is that even through this RFP process for event production of the festival, that the agency continue to manage and coordinate the parade operations. And again, that's just due in part because of how challenging the relationship of the different entities that participate in the parade can be to manage. So we are open and willing to continue managing the parade operations, and we hope that it continues to be a successful parade that everybody enjoys every year. Now, what we do as part of our relationship building with the state reps is that we do present them with a recognition every year for their participation on the parade. The plans for this year are for us to host an evening of a social gathering where we're asking them to bring a typical dish of the state that they are originally from and share it with all the other participants and guests at the event. The event is scheduled to take place on Saturday, November 4th, starting at 4 p.m. at the Southwest Senior Center, And of course, we would love for you to join us and be there to greet and congratulate all the parade participants, as well as to present them with their city council certificate. We've extended the same invitation and have requested certificates from the Mexican consulate. And they have yet to confirm their attendance, but they are supporting us with certificates. So I do have copies of the invitation, which as soon as I'm done with my presentation here, I'll go ahead and pass over to you. And again, we'll love for you to join us. But at this point, that's the update on the parade.
All right, thank you. So we don't have, we're going to continue? Okay.
Really quickly here, just for your information, the options for the event location. If you look at Site A, that's the traditional site where we've had it for many years, which is next to Northgate. That's where the main stage would be. Site B is where we had it this past September, which was on 5th and Main, between 5th and 4th Street. That was successful, as mentioned. However, the crowds were huge, and so the safety concern. So now, for the RFP process, we will be having the option of D or C. Option C is the stage being where the Dia de los Noche de Altares is held every year. That's what we're proposing. Same footprint. Now, for option D is having the stage in the stadium, Santa Stadium. Imagine having the stadium full as a concert venue, and then having the carnival right on Flower Street, and having the booths on the bottom of the super block, just like we did with the Black History Parade and Festival. That location, that footprint. So those are the options that the folks will get. Just keep
Location for what?
for fiesta, future fiestas.
There's
And
no-
let me explain a little
The
bit.
location is broader than
Oh,
just
yeah.
one
Yes.
So,
dot, so-
itself?
so the carnival equipment would be
On Flower.
between Santa Ana Boulevard and Civic Center. The booths and food will be in this super lot where
Okay.
the Black History, and then
So that's the
concert-
stadium, okay, so that's the
concert would
stadium
be in the
area.
stadium.
Uh-huh.
That's, so the RFP would propose, this is one option, or option C. She'll finish the presentation and give them, and we'll have to provide a subsidy.
Option C are what streets?
Option C is the same as Noche de Altares,
Ross
if you
and
recall,
Santa
where
Ana
the
Boulevard?
stair, on Ross, and by 5th Street, right by the federal courthouse. That's where the main stage for Noche de Altar is, and then they have booths on 4th Street. And that's also an option where the private event producers would be able to say, okay, they have this possibility, that possibility. Part of the reason, and she'll finish the presentation, is because the OC streetcar is also going to start construction in November 2018, as we understand it.
And that was my next point, is that we do have to consider the construction of the streetcar November 2018. And also, we will provide a subsidy for option C or D of in-kind of $75,000. And we will leave it up to the event producer to choose which option they prefer. The next slide. Really quickly, just the timeline for your information. 11/13 will be the RFP posted on Planet Bid. 11/28, the pre-proposal conference. 12/18, the RFP due date, and then it'll come to you on February 20th for City Council meeting award. And also what I wanted to mention is that we will mention the RFP that the city will no longer produce the Cinco de Mayo event, but if they are interested in producing it themselves, they could apply for a permit, just like any other person that applies for a permit to have an event in the downtown area. That would be included in there as well if they choose to do that. Thank you.
To have an event at the downtown area, but for right
For
now,
Cinco.
there's no Cinco de Mayo. We
Not
would have
produced
to
by
have something
us,
equivalent.
as mentioned at a previous meeting we
And
had.
regarding the Site D,
Yes,
where you would have the pit, that's the actual parking lot to the
Yes.
courthouse,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's kind of below. People probably wouldn't see it. It's full of
Well,
it's full of construction.
So, right now, but in
Yeah.
but in September
year?
2018, the construction charters.
Do we know if that's going to be freed up or?
Yeah, as far as we know, it is. That lower area was used very successfully when we used to produce the Black History Parade and Cultural Fair, and so we had because then you would have the carnival equipment kind of, telling the world something is happening here, and they'll see the carnival equipment there. What we're suggesting is that the in-kind $75,000 would be, if you do option C, probably the police cost alone for police coverage is closer to 80 to 90,000. So we wouldn't give them a check of 75,000. We would just reduce that cost for PD. For option D, if the private event producer sees, oh, the stadium is a great opportunity, they wouldn't be charged for the renting of the stadiums. So their 75, which is around $25,000. So their 75 would go down. They would to 50. They have 50 for the police cost. And then staff will continue doing the parade, as Jeannie mentioned. So those are the two thoughts. Primarily, as you know, Site A and Site B are not big enough anymore, and also the local stakeholders have been expressing that they have a very big impact. I think last time you suggested that in the RFP, we also mentioned to the private event producers the opportunity to do Cinco de Mayo, if they so choose to, but without the subsidy, and we will do that, as you had suggested.
Option C is going to be a little tough because the transitional center or the bus station is right there. You're talking right at that very site, right at the corner. Is that where this would take place?
Yeah,
It's
Rawson
right
Center.
before that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's
it's right next
there's
to
going to be a lot of
Sasser
foot
Park.
So, in
traffic
fact, on
for
the
people
first
to go
Saturday in
there.
November,
Yeah.
we'll be able to actually see it because that's where Noche de Altar usually takes place. But it's a one-day event. Noche de Altar is one-day event versus a two-day event. But you have a good point.
Yeah, and so there would be, thank you, and there would be the parade would come down Flower Street.
The parade wouldn't change. The same route.
Same route.
Same
and
route,
they would
main
just-
that we currently had. Main from 17th Main down to
Santa Ana Boulevard and at Ross, and then you would have to, if you want to see music or hear the music, see the show, then you have to go down the street to Flower and
this. That's
a
right.
block away.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I get it. That sounds like a much better option. But
Yeah.
Couple
Okay,
questions.
great too. Yes, Councilmember Benavides.
Thank you. So sites in the RFP, are sites A and B still included as options, or
No.
it's only?
No. So sites, option C and D will be the two options located, proposed in the RFP.
And does the RFP, I know, does not include Cinco de Mayo for 2018, an option if they choose to do that independently. The RFP specifically is Fiestas Patrias,
Correct.
Cinco de Mayo 2019, are we including Cinco de Mayo as part of the ongoing festivities for the city, or
No.
is
So as at the last meeting, I mentioned that Parks and Rec, as producing Cinco de Mayo, we're not able to do that anymore because of the staffing issues. Right now, a private event producer can come just as they do, and they decide we'll do a Cinco de Mayo. So there will always be the opportunity to do, and then they go through the process with PD and the whole. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, so is there a reason why we opted to not offer both in the RFP?
No,
Where-
that was a suggestion at your July council committee meeting, and we will mention in the RFP that city staff is no longer doing Cinco de Mayo, so that's an opportunity for the private and producer communication. But what we won't be doing is subsidizing it. So we won't be providing that in-kind 75,000 for Cinco, but mainly for the 40-year fiestas.
Okay. Is there, I'm assuming since we're subsidizing, there is no net gain, financial net gain to the city. This is not a net
No,
revenue
there never
producer
really
for us.
was any kind of, the making money of the events was easier when it was less expensive. And that's why the private event producers were eager to do it. And the only way to do it now, in my opinion, with a private event is by providing subsidy. The stadium might be a very motivating factor for these folks who do these concerts and these events. If you can go back to the timeline of the RFP, Cynthia made a good point that I think what we need to do is change it so that all of council at your, I believe it's November 21st council meeting, we'll put it on the council agenda so you authorize the release of the RFP on the 21st. Does that? So
Makes sense.
we have plenty of time. We're just going to alter the timeline a little bit.
A quick question about the field at the artificial field
Yes.
over at
Yes.
the stadium. Is that going to get damaged with so many
So we
people
have
on
this
there?
protective covering that we invested in. They're like jigsaw puzzles that you put them together, and it gives this hard plastic covering that protects the synthetic field for events. And we used to do a Mother's Day mariachi festival, and we would actually have tables and chairs and feed people there on the synthetic field, but with this protective covering, so that we have that available.
Excellent. Anything else, Councilmember Solorio?
Yeah. So the streetcar construction, we think best case scenario is what, 2019, 2020?
Well, construction, I was told, I don't know if in this part, is November 2018. So Fiestas is in September 2018. So option C is viable, but once construction starts, it's going to be very difficult to do it at option C because that's where the streetcar goes by. So I don't know exactly, it's a 4-mile DOC streetcar. I don't know if November 2018 there will already be utilities or whatever construction. So this is also, with that in mind, part of the reason we're doing all of this, not just the impact of Site B and A on the businesses.
I mean, my gut is that there might not really be construction impacts that would prevent activities for A, B, or C, at least for 2018. And so it'd be my preference that we continue to allow A and B as options as well for 2018. I mean, the other thing that we haven't discussed yet is, the optics for some people is if we do remove A and B, that we're removing, key events from 4th Street, Calle Cuatro, and, we talked about personalities and debates and other things that, I guarantee you will be a big issue with respect to this. So I don't know that via an RFP we want to make that decision for the council or the community. And I know Councilmember Benavides has been a little bit more active in these types of discussions in recent years. So I don't know, Councilman, if you have any thoughts on that sensitivity.
The downtown always brings a colorful discussion, and there's different points of view. And all that said is that it was interesting that, and timely, I think, that we just received a letter a few days ago, a joint letter from the Downtown Santa Ana Business Council and Downtown Inc., which have at different times seemingly been at odds, but came together and together requested that the city consider an alternative location because of some of these impacts. They listed some of the, even though the intent, I think, for us as a city is to draw people into the city, to hopefully contribute to economic development and more, registers ringing and more sales and more food being sold. No, it seems that it's been a few years that some of the retailers down there have been saying it's actually a drain and slows things down. They gave an example of like Northgate alone on that weekend lost like $80,000 in the last year, in this last Fiestas event. So for that reason, I think having and I think the main thing, having the options of A, D, and C makes sense. I think the main thing though is communication. Is just making clear to Councilman Solorio's point is that we're communicate in advance. That the Noche de Altares event is very successful on the other end of the block there at Ross. So somehow making it so that we're clear that we're not trying to move things away from Calle Cuatro, but we're trying to look at maybe even sort of follow the lead of the success of the fiesta of the Noche de Altares and seeing how it's worked well.
And maybe there's other ways that we could do informal outreach over the next couple of months. I mean, I think some people may take it well. I think some people are going to take it very bad. And I know that the letter that you mentioned also spoke to really for some of these events, for issues of money coordination, etc. Maybe we haven't been pulling in the merchants as much so that they can more directly benefit from some of the marketing and others. But I think we just gotta be real careful on the communications, the decision making. Who decides? Are we deciding? Are the vendors deciding? I mean, the other the other thing about the downtown is, there's a variety of different businesses, right? And some folks probably benefit from us being there. Some don't. Some may be closed anyway. Some are happy to take that day off. Quite honestly, it's an opportunity to take a break. And then it's been events like Fiestas Patrias that have made Santa Ana successful. I mean, I think really, the Latino culture and events like this and the Dia de los Muertos events is what brings that extra spirit and vitality. And so if you keep pushing stuff out from those areas, I mean, what are we really going to be left with? So I'm really torn with too early making this decision.
Sure.
I mean, I understand if down the road if the streetcar is there
Yeah.
and it's on streets which directly compete with what we have, that's one thing. But between
Sure.
now and then, I don't really know. That,
So what we can do is in the draft of the RFP that we're going to be preparing that will be approved by the entire council November 21st, is provide, maybe consider, this is just a thought, consider providing all of the options and then seeing what the private event producers do and still offering the subsidy and knowing full well that the day is coming. Now, we've already made a decision not to continue city staff produced Cinco de Mayo. So there was this complaint historically now for several years, as you mentioned, on the two events. So now there's only one event, right?
Right. And
so
that's
in a way,
right,
that's
right.
something.
That's a big help.
The other thing you should know, you mentioned, we need to get the local businesses more involved. Well, it's not just the business; it's also the Loft and the downtown neighborhood association. They've also been asserting the Loft owners where they live. But I also need to let you know, in the last 2 years, we lowered the cost for booth for local 4th Street businesses, and they've been more involved.
Right.
Also to the restaurants, if they want to sell food. Taqueria Guadalajara, who's there on 4th Street, has always participated. They love the event.
Right.
And the other thing we've done is that we got them involved with programming more. So Santa Ana Business Council, for example, got very involved with the school district in providing a lot of talent, because they had relations with the school, a lot of talent of the youth. So we've gotten them involved.
Right.
Yet, nonetheless, you got the letter, that you just received the letter. I think it's an oversaturation of, there's just a lot of events in the downtown, not just the ones we produce. They're small compared to the other.
And I think the other reality with this event and the women's event is that even though there are clear impacts, we're marketing individual businesses, the street, et cetera. And so even though maybe that day they're not, purchasing X or doing X there, they come back or they leave with a very positive impression. Whereas the Ross Street area, there's nothing there to promote. I mean, there's nothing there where people are going to one day follow up and buy anything or get a coffee or visit the homeless shelter there. So in terms of like branding products and having folks see your merchandise and your beautiful downtown, that is not the message that the Ross Street location sends.
Very good points, everyone. And thank you, Gerardo. And yes,
Just one other thing that we can do before the 21st is check with the Orange County Transportation Commission. Once they award a contract for streetcar construction, they will turn that site over to the contractor, and they will control it. But we can get an estimate from them on when they're actually going to do that. And at that point, we would need to stay out of some of that area because it goes under the control of the contractor. If anything goes wrong, they are responsible. But I think we could probably get a better estimate from them on the timing.
yes, thank you. And Councilmember Benavides was right about keeping the communication open. Talk a little bit more. Have we ever had Fiestas Patrias and then have all the entertainment and everything on flour and in the bowl?
No, I guess not. Jose, what was it that there was an event that some private event producer did on flour, but it wasn't Fiestas?
It was Fiestas.
Oh, it was Fiestas.
It was late, I think it was in 98, 99, I believe. It was 2 years, and not back to back. I think it was 97 and 99, only on Flower Street, but not on the lot, and also not on Bowl, just on Flower Street. And events were not successful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bowl was not involved.
The bowl was not involved. See, I think the bowl will probably be attractive to,
on the entertainment portion.
For the entertainment
yes,
portion,
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a parking structure there. There's parking. Well, but yeah, I was just wondering, have these two ever been tied together? And obviously, you just answered it, but the bowl wasn't used.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of good points, like I said, from the council members regarding what do we have to promote downtown. And, I would like to leave the options all open and just
to see what we get.
To continue with that. And also to communicate with the businesses down there and to see. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item.
Oh, this is a very exciting last item that we have. Well, not the last one, because the last one is talking about our next week's joint use policy. But let me encourage Ron to go quick and not go too much in detail, because there's a lot of information. But it's the park bond. It's very exciting. Last time there was a park bond, we did quite well. We almost got $10 million for 2 major projects.
But it has to pass yet.
It has to pass. That's right. It has. I think he'll tell us a little bit about the bond. This is a very early planning, and then also it was a follow up to your questions last time. We are able to give you a little bit information on park trees, and now I'll turn it over to Ron. Thank you.
And Ron, before you start, but it might give some ideas to start thinking about how the city positions itself to take a position on the bond and help to get it passed with the residents in Santa Ana, because getting people excited about what you're going to see and what's possible for the community is the way that we'll see the state pass this bond.
Thank you. As Gerardo indicated, it's a two-part presentation. One part is about the park bond that's being proposed, and the other part is about our tree condition and our park system. On the park bond, just to give you an update status, both the Assembly and Senate has approved issuance of the park bond. The governor has already signed it on October the 15th, so it goes before a statewide ballot in June 2018. If to pass, it has to be a simple majority vote by the people. It's a $4 billion park bond, of which I've only identified 2 of the items that's on this list of park bonds, of which $215 million is a per capita program, of which Gerardo indicated, I think at the last park bond, we had about $2 million worth of money that we can distribute to various park projects. And there's also a $162 million river parkways initiative. So in that, we would probably be a competitive vote on the Santa Ana River Conservancy, which will be a competitive process on projects that's along the Santa Ana River. If the park bond does pass, the next presentation is going to be potential projects that you could just consider on how we utilize the park bond. I've identified 3 new park development projects that you're aware of. Sixth and Lacey project, which we acquired. We've got a conceptual plan being prepared, and we're about ready to start development. We have some of the money, but not all the money. Raid and Myrtle, same situation. We have a conceptual plan prepared, but we need to identify funding for development. And the McFadden Standard Park project, which we just acquired, and we'll go to public outreach meetings on identify what improvements they would like to see on that new park site.
Quick question for you, Ron.
Sure.
Back to the Sixth and Lacey. I had a recent question addressed to me, and I wasn't sure how to answer it. I knew that we had some funding that has been identified,
yes.
Right? So the question that was presented to me is whether there's a timeline on that grant.
2 years.
2 years.
Okay. So if what's the 2 years starting when? Like how far are into the 2 years?
Maybe 3 months ago it started?
Yeah, about
something
3
like
months
that.
ago.
Okay. So if we don't develop this new park space within that period of time, then do we lose those funds?
Yes.
And do you think
Yes.
is there a danger of us?
I don't.
potentially
I
not-
think we had a similar grant, the same parameters for the Memory Lane Park that we opened.
Mm-hmm.
We moved very fast to get that done because we weren't about to give back any money.
Right.
And it's the same grant program.
Okay.
It's connected to housing.
Okay.
low-income housing around the area.
Okay.
And
How-
so
how much was that? It's about
500,
yeah, about-
$500,000.
Yeah, but
a little,
$500,000.
a little over $500,000.
Okay.
But it's a project that probably at least you need $1 million, at least. Maybe a little bit more, depending on what you add and a variety of different things.
So since we're in a time crunch there, Cynthia, you think you can get that all figured out and done, completed, and built for you?
Next week?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. The next item that I've identified is potential projects of recreational additions. Santiago Nature Center, playground that's next to the reservoir. Remember where the big slide was located?
Two big slides. That area.
That area now needs to be kind of redeveloped. There's another nature playground.
Slides are coming back.
Yeah, we can
Maybe-
do that.
maybe.
Memorial Community Center is a very old community center. It used to be a pool building. We want to completely demolish it and rebuild a new community center next to the swimming pool. Santiago Segerstrom Triangle Eco Park.
Is that across from Saddleback Heights?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Right now it's all turf, and we're going to develop into some kind of natural eco park. Thornton and Kiwanis Berry security lighting project. Delhi Sports soccer field lighting. Right now we have a large soccer field with no lighting on it, and various zoo exhibits as we complete the zoo master plan. Other items, we've done a lot of new playground equipment in our park system, but we still have a few more to complete. Sandpoint, Chapa, and Angel. Although Chapa, we just applied for a grant, and we got, so that we'll be implementing that with a grant, so that could be actually crossed out of the
But
list.
we still need to identify additional monies, I think,
Yeah,
for that project.
yeah. Security lighting, again, is another project that we've done a lot of new security lighting in our park system, but we have a few more parks to complete. That's Chapa, Delhi, Prentice, and Sandpoint. The other projects that we need to look at is ball field sports lighting renovation. Rosita and Thornton Park ball field, although the lights are going to be renovated, Rosita's already been renovated. Thornton's going to be renovated in the next month or so. But those are old lights. The lights are obsolete. It was difficult getting the light bulbs and fixtures for that park, so we need to completely convert that into a Musco system in order to repair it in the future. Memorial Ball Field light, also the same situation. Thornton, Dan Young Soccer Complex, Cabrillo, Delhi, Heritage, Santa Anita, and Santiago all needs to be upgraded and renovated. Especially Santa Anita, since we got a grant to put in a new synthetic turf soccer field. It's got a recreational lighting system in there, sports lighting system already there, but needs to be updated and improved. Skate park is another area that we need to look at as possible future funding once we identify the park. The swimming pools, we have 5 swimming pools, 2 of which needs to be resurfaced. So I identified those 2 swimming pool resurfacing projects. Facility renovation, the Sandpoint Paseo landscape. We are going to be putting in security lighting along the Sandpoint Paseo, but after that we need to renovate some of the landscaping. Centennial Lake renovation, we've already done all our studies. Now we're prepared to do the actual installation. The Campesino restroom renovation, that restroom needs to be completely renovated. The synthetic turf at the Dan Young Soccer Field Complex, Field 3, and Field 1, the lighting and synthetic turf. Goodini Sports Field synthetic turf, that's an option that we can do. And the Lily King parking lot. Right now, Lily King has no parking lot. It's all surface parking, surface street parking. So we need an option within parking there. In addition, adding more park space, possible land expansion at Santa Anita Park. As you know, Santa Anita Park is pretty much landlocked.
That tire store?
Yeah.
Right.
So we can purchase some property opening up to either First Street or Harbor Boulevard. Centennial Eco Park, that's the piece of property where the fire training or police training facility is.
The 4 acres of dirt area over there at Centennial that are not currently being used.
You said, I'm sorry, real quick. Did you say acquisition or developing that?
Developing.
Okay.
Yeah, for Centennial. Okay. Yeah, developing it.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about Riverview Golf Course, so I kind of plug that in case there's any need to develop a park site in that.
Well,
whole.
as you know, I believe the agreement is expiring in 2020. It's partially owned by the city, partially the land by the county. So there's going to be a big decision being made whether it remains a golf course operated by the private golf course, or should it become a park, because it's already approved by the Army Corps of Engineers on the river. As you know, it's all green there because there's riprap under it so water can flow. A lot of people think of Willow Wake as a possibility, except that Riverview is already owned by the public. It's an 18-course golf course. It's just a thought. People have been talking it from time to time, but it is expiring. Is it 2020 or 2024? I forget. I think it's one of those.
2020, I believe.
2020 is expiring.
It's pretty soon.
And the other item is a possible land acquisition. This is by Lathrop, right?
No, Martin Elementary.
Martin Elementary.
Martin Elementary area is the area that I keep on pointing out. It's the last area where you can't really walk to find a park. It's once we finish that, we will say, wow, there's like a park within walking distance. So it's in the Wilshire area, so it's Martin Elementary. Across, there's a Korean congregation church that has been talking about that they want to sell, but I don't know if they're formally selling, but it's a very small congregation. And that's just a possibility of a great, both joint use maybe, I don't know.
And the other item that I'm going to speak about is our current need for park tree needs. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have our current maintenance agreement only requires the contractor to maintain up to 15 feet.
Of tree trimming.
Of tree trimming. We
Not
have
high.
a small amount of funding, $50,000 or so, to maintain our tree, and we're very selective on how we use that because there's a lot of need to prune or remove our dead trees and diseased trees to keep them healthy and to help reduce any liability in the future. We have approximately 8,500 trees in the park system. Of the 8,500 trees, we just recently did a count. 350 trees are dead, and about 230 trees are diseased and needs to be treated or removed. Trees are pruned only on an emergency basis because we only have a limited amount of funding to prune trees, and we estimate we need at least $500,000 to prune trees on a regular basis. Our tree priorities would be obviously our larger park sites such as Santiago Park, the Santa Ana Zoo, and Centennial Park.
They're all priorities, but those are some particular areas that have a lot of dead trees and need to improve some of the situation. But the main point here is that we're severely underfunded in tree maintenance in the park system, which is different than your street trees. And we just wanted to point it out because we do have a lot of trees that are dead that has a risk of them falling and damaging things or hurting people. So it is something that, while expecting $500,000 more for tree trimming in the park might be a little too much in 1 year, we need to at least start adding a bit more to start incrementally dealing with the health of the park trees.
And some of it could be built into the bond because as you work in a park, you can take care of
Yes,
the trees.
that's
there.
right.
So
That's right.
as you look at
That's right. Correct.
anything you're doing with bond money or park money, it should.
That's right.
Trees can be built in.
Okay, very good.
Have we had any, quick question, have we had any incidents with,
Claims?
yes, and I ask because we are seeing more and more of other types of claims, trip and fall one
Yes.
in particular, right? So in general, our issues have been, it's we don't have the funds to fix these sidewalks and such, and with all of the claims that have been adding up over the last couple of years, it seems like we can't afford not to. It seems like so I'm just wondering whether that's the type of case.
We have had claims that primarily they mainly damage cars. They hit cars, and we have claims on car repair. We've been fortunate not to have any major injuries, but the trees do fall. Eucalyptus trees in particular have notorious for falling on. That's why I put Santiago there, because we have a lot of eucalyptus trees and they fall. So it is something that we mentioned last time that we would bring to you, because it's something that we need to start planning to be more effective. Just like we regularly maintain street trees, well, that's very...
We're not doing that either.
Well,
Yeah.
but $50,000 for the entire park tree system is just not enough.
Right. I'm seeing that we got about 580 trees that are hurting if you combine the 350 and the 230. Even though it's small, I mean, it's still quite a bit of trees.
They should be trimmed every 3 years. So just
Correct.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Right. You know, yeah, so anything else from staff? on that?
That's it for that item.
Okay, great. Let's move on to item number 6 regarding the joint use policy.
Yeah, we're waiting on a draft of an agenda from the school district because it's their turn. But I can tell you what's been discussed on the items for October 30th, a week from now. And it'll be in the district administration office. We'll make sure that you all
We're
know.
meeting over there?
Yeah, it's their turn to host. Internship coordination, the water tower, I can't read my own handwriting, water tower, they added, I believe they added the use of logos and flyers. I think it was a school district item, they added that. And then the proposed MOU for community enrichment program is on the agenda for next week. And then communication, just general, they added that communication, the school district. I think that's it. We may have a discussion next week on Madison, maybe not. Yeah, I think.
Gerardo, can we add, our new position, the youth services supervisor
Sure.
position, and what that role will be, and how it could potentially interface with the district and who they might have? And I mean, I'm curious to see if they have some kind of a similar, comparable,
Okay.
and that can link up and collectively serve our youth.
I also want to add, anything else you want to add? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but if we can add an update on the Wi-Fi issue.
Sure.
They have dropped their Wi-Fi project.
Yeah.
But you might,
Oh,
yes.
really?
Yes, they
They
told
did.
us that they had decided they were not going to proceed. They had told you they had set $600,000 aside, and we're looking at that. But as they worked with Jack to see if we could coordinate anything, they decided that was not what they wanted to move forward on. You could certainly ask them to explain why. I don't know the answer, but we were told they dropped it.
So
Yeah.
they can update us on why they dropped it.
Okay.
Great. Anything else? Any closing comments or
None at
anything you
this
want to
point.
add? Okay. Well, thank you very much, all the staff, all the great work that you do, and I appreciate the updates and the zoo. That sounds pretty exciting. All of this is a lot of good information to have, and we're looking at tackling everything to make this place, to make the city much better. And well, thank you very much. And with
Thank you.
that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
So Cynthia, when's your last day officially with us?
Next Tuesday.
Wow. Like, in less